Welcome to episode 1 of The Meaning of Sound. In this episode I speak to Rae Fowler, who I had never met before. We exchanged emails to organise this Zoom call because we were too far away to meet in person. We spoke about his earlier years and how he came to music, his approach to technology, and his plans for the future of his musical identity. This is the first of the 3 original episodes I recorded as part of a university module, which I'm now re-releasing as a precursor to the episodes that I'm currently recording. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did.
Well, how I got here a few billion years ago, some little thing crawled out the sea. That was the beginning of how I got here. But in terms of more recently, since I've been conscious, I got into music. Well, yeah, I mean, music was just something that always felt right. But it wasn't until I was 18, and it was through DJing that I started to manipulate sounds. Yeah, through manipulating other people's records. I remember when I was about 8, hearing or watching in assembly this kid in the top year, whatever it was, he was 10 or 11, playing a piece on a keyboard that he'd composed. I mean, yeah, it was really subconscious, but I just remember thinking, wow, like, I was listening to Michael Jackson. I was listening to Thriller at the time. That was the first tape I ever bought. And I thought Michael Jackson was, another type of being. People who did those kinds of things were not like, I wasn't like them.
Is there an element of it was sort of too good to be true? I want that so much, there's no way that is possible.
No, it was just literally like, I don't know, like the royal family. You can't get in the royal family without being a royal. I thought that making music was like you were born into it or you weren't. I didn't think normal people, as I considered myself, had that opportunity. And so when so-called normal people around me seemed to be doing it, I didn't understand. I just didn't understand. I didn't understand how they thought that was okay. It was purely down to the fact that I just didn't think it was something that was open to me. No more than coming from a different ethnic background. If I wasn't born into that ethnic background, I didn't think that as a musician, I thought music was something similar. It was like I wasn't born to do that. It was through, I suppose, you know what I think? Yeah, there was something opened up when I started to smoke weed. I don't know. I suppose these fears that just kind of, like broke down, and then how like dance music came into my life, and maybe not just just drugs in general. It opened me up to like the idea that it just opened me up to life, and I could take whatever, open up opportunities for myself, and there wasn't anything that was off limits. I think drugs gave me that confidence to feel or open my mind up to the fact that there were no barriers, and I just made them up. Or I didn't. Again, it wasn't a conscious thing. I just remember looking back now, I started taking drugs, and then I started to be like, I want to do that, I want to do this, and started doing it, and didn't really think about it. I just was like, I was able to not even when I was high. I think something happened. They talk about when you do acid and you're never the same again. And I think that something happened around that time where suddenly those blocks weren't there, and I was like, I want to try that. How do I do that? And it was through DJing, and I was like, I love these records. I want to DJ. It sounds amazing. And I walked into a record shop, and that was the moment that I wanted to be in the music business, was when I walked into this record shop in Sutton in Surrey, and there were these 2 guys DJing behind the decks, and it was just like, fucking hell, that just is amazing, that what they're doing. It was just, my whole being just lit up. And the next thing I got them to teach me how to DJ. So yeah, my inhibitions just sort of just went. And if I wanted something, I'd ask. I'd go, how do I get this? Okay, I need to learn to DJ. Let me ask these people who know how to do it. And I just lost all my inhibitions. And yeah, I was ready to. I got cheeky, and I was willing to be told to fuck off. Most of the time I wasn't. Most of the time having the confidence just to ask got me the opportunities that I wanted or needed. I woke up out of this, thinking that music wasn't open to me, to getting involved wherever I could. Yeah, I just kind of cultivated a one-track mind around music and anything music related. Through this track that James and I, Mark and I made, I met James Lavelle through a skateboard. Skateboarding was another thing that basically defined my youth. And through being a South Bank local, I met lots of different people, and one of those people knew James, and I met James through him, and we hit it off. And he released Mark and I's records. That was it was DJ Solo and DJ Aura, and it sold a few thousand. It's just unheard. It's so hard to sell a few thousand records today. Sort of walked into a successful, a relatively successful release on a extremely successful record label, Mowax. And from there, getting involved with Mowax was a life in its own right. There was clubs. There was Dusted, the nightclub that was monthly that I started DJing at. I'd go DJ. James would be DJing most weekends, and I'd go along, and we'd have fun. It would be great at the club, and also we had a lot of downtime, and so we started talking about music and realised how much we had in common, just as people and musically, and I feel like I could probably go on indefinitely. So I'm wondering whether there's another question you want to ask, or you just want me to keep going.
Well, I think I'll ask another question, but not because I don't want to listen to you keep going.
No, because otherwise it's just going to be like explaining my whole career. But so we just leave it there in terms of that was the beginning of when obviously I became part of UNKLE, but there was like a long period of talking, kind of on late nights, just talking about ideas and dreams and things that we wanted to do, like for a few years leading up to the first record we made as a partnership as UNKLE.
When you collaborate with people, UNKLE as well as anyone else that you have, does it normally take the sort of form of friends playing around with music, or is that how it starts and then it moves into a professional partnership?
Yeah, I think mostly the people that I've collaborated with, have been, it's chance meetings. It's always that thing of when I made a record with Mark, DJ Solo, it wasn't like, I'm going to make this record because I want to get on Mowax. It was like an opportunity arose. Mark came into my consciousness, and it was like, okay, if I connect with that guy and see if he's interested in doing something. And then I didn't see beyond that. So then we do that, something comes of that, and then someone else appears that can be connected with, and the dots get joined serendipitously. There wasn't like a plan, it just all happened spontaneously. And it has been, just through relationships, there's a lot of luck involved, being in the right place at the right time.
And how do you decide which of those people to collaborate with? Because surely being on tour, being in the business, you must meet so many people with similar interests. How do you decide this person is going to create something good with my attributes combined?
Again, it's just you're either into it or you're not. It just either feels like something you want to pursue or not. And sometimes things feel like things you want to pursue, and you try them, and quite early on it doesn't feel quite right, and then you let it go. And other times it feels really good, and you continue, and maybe you do more than one collaboration. But it's not at all intellectualized. It's just the same way as you feel like people who you meet maybe become friends, or you don't see them ever again. It's just a feeling. It's just instinct.
When you've got to the point with someone that you think, you're fairly confident this is something you want to work with, you're hanging out, you're trying things out, is there a process that you have to take that to a point where you've got some work? Does one of you bring the other one some ideas? Do you sit down with a blank page together?
I mean, it does depend. With UNKLE, there's a name, and so you've got a certain amount of clout. You were fortunate enough to have that name as a calling card, and so if you heard someone's music that you like, you could get our manager to call their manager and see if they were interested in collaborating on something. And generally, with the UNKLE collaborations, James and I would construct a demo in terms of a backing track something to inspire the other party, who would generally be a vocalist, but sometimes would also be an instrumentalist. So generally, in terms of UNKLE, we would begin the proceedings with regards to any kind of any recordings, and then the other party may, in their own time, do something, or they might have heard it, and then we come together and collaborate. But normally, what would happen is, we would create something, send it to them. They would then write something on it, like I say, generally a vocal, send it back to us, and then we would go in and record it properly together.
Do you think that clout and the relative freedom to basically work with who you want allowed you to sort of be more experimental and do things at the forefront of the time and not fit right into the box of what people expected?
We see the great thing about being partners with James in UNKLE was that and because of the success that the first record had, and where I was at in my life, because a lot of people I took place of DJ Shadow, who is a fucking legend. I'm not DJ Shadow. I never, we're different, completely different people, and he's made some seminal records. So I was really grateful actually because I got the opportunity to be half of UNKLE, but I didn't feel the pressure of having to be the new DJ Shadow entity within UNKLE. So we did have total freedom, and I felt really free within that space. We weren't trying to be commercial. We weren't trying to. There was funds. We were just in a really fortunate situation where there were funds, and there was no one telling us what kind of record to make and who to make it with, and so we were very free within that process to just, like you say, experiment and do whatever we wanted.
And would you consider your music to be innovative? I know it's a big word that has sort of many definitions, but is that something that you associate with your music?
It's certainly not retro. So I would consider it music, contemporary music. Innovative. I don't know. Certainly I've always liked to try and do something original and new, for sure. Whether that can be considered innovative, I'll have to look up the definition of that word, because
I think, it is a very vague word, but from the sounds of it, that is absolutely it. It's that striving for something new, not focusing on the ancient cycles, but trying to have some kind of impact and change.
We set out to be innovative, for sure, always.
And what steps do you take? Does it sort of come naturally to you, as well as having that as your intentions, or is it very much like, okay, how are we going to do something that hasn't really been seen before?
Well, for example, I suppose if once we recorded something, we listen back to it and we're like, okay, that sounds a bit like this or a bit like that. The first thought was, so how could we develop this into being something beyond this or that? But we wanted to, I suppose, transcend our influences. So sometimes a starting point might be something close to something that's already been done, or sometimes it would have even been something that's been done. For example, using a sample, looping up someone else's record, and then adding to that. Maybe emotionally, there was an emotional feeling that come from the sample, but I don't know, maybe it had no drums, and then we brought drums to that. And there were records potentially that we liked as records as they originally were, but it was like the exciting thing was to be able to make that into something new for us, and hopefully for other people as well, something other people would be excited by, the development of something old into something new. It was just like throw some ideas down, see what we got, and then that would inspire the next stage of recording, just in that moment, spontaneously. I could never work myself to kind of like, I want to get to there. All the times I tried were very ineffective. It was always just keep adding to this until suddenly there's a moment where you go, fucking hell, I'd really like this now.
That's a really nice way of putting it. I think it is something that's really important to acknowledge, that innovation can't be something that comes from nowhere. You can't have something that has absolutely no relation to anything that's been done before, because we just wouldn't recognize that as music. So innovation always has a set of influences, but it takes it to that next stage, which makes it important and makes it relevant and makes it a sort of reflection of the time. It sounds like you guys were very much making music for fun and for your own enjoyment. I'm wondering if you guys thought about the audience you're reaching that much, and thought about the culture that you were writing in, the period of time that you were writing in, especially in those early days when so much was changing. did you purposely make your music a reflection of what was going on, or did you just make the music that you felt was self-expression and it naturally happened to reflect the times and the situations that you happened to be in?
It's always been a reflection of where we are at emotionally, even if that wasn't even conscious. Subconsciously, which for me always is the driving force, would make it so.
Maybe could you tell me a bit about the difference in the times back then, you know, sort of 2000s and 90s compared to now? Because obviously I was born in 97, so I didn't experience that time. Maybe in the technology, could you tell me the tech that you were using back then?
Tech, okay. Well, the studio was based around a Pro Tools system. When I started, it was an Atari ST a couple of years before, but when I was involved with UNKLE, everything was sequenced. The heart of the studio was the Pro Tools system, which is still the heart of my studio today and a lot of things. And so, yeah, Pro Tools and an MPC, you know, the MPC range, which is still going strong today. But my first MPC was an MPC 1000. No, MPC 2000 XL. And so I would make a lot of loops on the MPC, both musical and drums. But then everything would get put into the Pro Tools. So samples, bits that I'd done, vocals, everything would end up in Pro Tools as audio, because it could just be so easily moved around. I remember the first time I used audio because I was so used to MIDI, and MIDI being, I'm sure you know what MIDI is, but like the idea of audio, like you can see the waveforms, it's like they're there, you can touch them. It's like, oh my God, that is what we're hearing. There it is. I couldn't get my head around that for quite a while actually. But it was so, the great thing about Pro Tools was just like that. It was just there and so easy just to repeat. The idea of just being able to repeat, just grab a word and repeat it again and again, it was just like that kind of thing would take quite a while to do with MIDI. Audio was coming through as opposed to MIDI and tape being the, I suppose, yeah, Pro Tools was kind of the digital version of multi-track tape recording.
Did you ever start with, you ever mess around with tape stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I never touched tape myself, but I was certainly involved in sessions where the engineer would be working to tape. And there's a couple of tracks where they were put to tape at the end, like the mixes were put to tape, just saturate it a bit, but not much. I don't know much about tape. I like the way it sounds, but I have no real technical knowledge of tape. I never spliced the tape.
Where does the tech live in your music? Is it at the beginning? Do you write from the possibilities of what the technology can do, or do you have concepts or sounds that you like and then find ways to do that through the technology?
Yeah, no, I'm in control. I certainly don't allow the technology to tell me what to do. I'm generally going, why can't you fucking do this? And getting irritated with it because yeah, what I want to do is slightly out of the realms of either what I know or what it is possible to do with technology that I have to hand. Yeah, I like going back to an MPC now, which is a classic drum machine, and using. I always feel quite constricted by those things now. It was a few years ago where I started to mimic any kind of part that I wanted to put into a song. I'd use a microphone and just, if it was a drum part, I'd sing that drum part. If it was a bass, I'd sing that bass part. And so I suddenly became so free because obviously with my mouth, I can create any sound, any note, any tempo, anything, whenever I want, just there and then. And so I got into this habit of just basically mimicking things and then working out how to, if I wanted to replicate what I'd created with my mouth, with a drum machine or with a synth or with an instrument or with a vocal, I'd do that later. But I just got into the habit of just doing everything with, because it was so instantaneous. So yeah, I really respect and I love. There's certain people who are completely opposite and they kind of turn a machine on and let the machine lead the way and kind of dance with the machine. But no, for me, it's yeah. I've never actually done much of that. I've had little moments of turning on synths and finding sounds, but really, what works for me is to be the creator and then use the instruments to copy what my being has created.
Well, I think that's probably a really strong reason why you have been, you know, a sort of innovative influence over the past years, because you're not letting the technology restrict you. You're actually pushing past it, pushing the limits of what's possible, and that is what causes us to have new things become possible through people striving for things that aren't yet available.
I'll take that. I suppose I never looked at it that way, but yeah, but no, like I say, it's I appreciate your point of view. It's just it's just felt I've been unrestricted that way. I've always felt restricted by, if I let machines be in charge, and I always, I don't like those restrictions. But there's other musicians who those restrictions, those boundaries, have created really powerful pieces of music because of the way that there's something to be said for when people and machines rub up against each other. I mean, there's been moments of anyway, I like the way I work, but I also appreciate it when people allow themselves to get carried along by synths, you know, for example. But I like a mixture of both. For example, on the record, one of the tracks on the album that I just made, which I just realised didn't actually make the record, but there's an LFO which obviously has a waveform on it, and I really like this. There's a sample and hold function on most synths where you might play one note, but it changes the filtering on the one note. So as opposed to one note just sounding the same every time it's played, it fluctuates with regards to the filtering on it. So it gives it a lot of movement and sounds really interesting. But it's consistent. It's on like 8th or 16th or quarter note, and you can't kind of miss one out. But I wanted to have a less like straight rhythm, because I could hear it, I could sing what I wanted, but I couldn't play it because without the computer controlling the velocity changes with the filter, it just didn't sound the same. If I tried to just press the note going dear and changing the filter, it just it didn't have the same effect. So there's certain things that computers can do that the human equivalent just doesn't sound as good. So in that example, so I wanted this syncopation and the sound quality of the filter changes that I couldn't replicate the computer's expression of. So I called a technical guy up, and I got him to make this lead with a button on it, which meant that I could cut out the sample and hold function on a particular 8th note if I wanted to, so that it would have spaces. Sometimes the spaces that I could hear in my head, I could sing it, but I wanted it to play what I was singing. And with this button, it basically it was a jack lead with a button on it that cut the jack lead whenever I pressed the button, and so I was able to create the pattern that I wanted. That the machine the machine would only play a particular pattern, but I was able to get in there and and manipulate it so it would play the pattern I want. And I enjoyed that, but it was really hard work, I have to say, getting to that point. And there was certainly it was satisfying, and I do like that. I do like, it's like, okay, you won't do what I want to do. I'm gonna find a workaround, but it took a lot of mental energy, and I certainly couldn't spend my life doing things like that. You know, I'd be exhausted. But it was certainly something I remember as like a situation where a machine does something better than I can do it, but I just need to change the way it does it slightly, and it won't do it without me having to really think about it and find a workaround, because it doesn't want to play ball, but I made it.
No, like I said, I think that's a really impressive approach to sort of pre-see it and then make it happen with the machine. And like you're saying about the equipment being able to do things that humans naturally just can't do, I'm sure that is a massive part of why technology has become such a massive part of music, and why the innovation in music is being generated by the technology mainly. I really admire that way of working. It's certainly something that, sort of currently, I think, beyond me. I think I'll ask you one final question just to sort of generally understand your feelings towards music. You talk with a lot of passion about music, but I'm wondering, what does it mean to you? Is it a hobby or a career or a way of life? I guess you could say, what's its primary function in your life? What does it do for you?
Well, I feel looking back now, it was a way of me expressing my true self at a time when I didn't even know what that meant. It was really interesting. The songs I wrote, as opposed to, I didn't realize, like looking back now, when I look at songs I wrote, the way I felt was expressed through the songs, but I didn't know how I felt outside of the music I made. I was out of touch with the way I truly felt about the world, and it was only through my music that I could get in touch with how I felt. And I didn't even know that was happening at the time. I just know that it made me feel good when I made music. And I realize now that it was because I was to express how I truly felt about myself and my relationship with the world. So today, it's I am better at expressing myself and my relationship with the world without using music to I have other ways apart from music, should I say, to express myself and my connection with the world. So music isn't my only form of communication anymore. So it feels, I think that in a way, if I disconnected from music in the past, it would have felt life threatening. And that sounds dramatic, but in terms of me being able to emotionally connect to my surroundings, because it was my only what's the word?
Is it outlet?
That's a one word, but the word I can't think of the word. It was my only I can't think of the word. But over the last like few years, yeah, a lot's changed for me, and so yeah, I'm not so reliant on it. So in that way, which for me as a person is much better. I have a much healthier relationship with it, because it's one of many things in my life now, whereas it used to be the only thing. And I see why now, because all I want to do as a human is connect, and that was my only way of connecting. But now I have many other ways of connecting, and so there's not so much pressure on it, if that makes sense. So where is it in my life today? It's one of the many ways that I connect with the world and express myself. It just as it always has been, but I just, like I said, I feel like I have a much healthier relationship with it now, because it's not the be all and end all. It's incredibly important in my life, but it isn't. It used to be life, but it's part of life now. Whereas I used to think that life was music. Now music is part of my life, part of the things that make up my life. Whereas I used to think, and I used to live through music. Now I live a life, and part of that life is creating music.
I'm wondering, because if I'm right, the album you're writing now is the first album that you'll be releasing under the name Rich File.
Yes.
Are those things related at all, or is that for different motivations?
Yeah, there's not really a short answer to that. One thing just led to another, and I always wanted to make an album of my own, because although I've really enjoyed collaborating, there's certain times in collaboration where it's like, oh, I wish we could have gone that way, and part of collaboration is compromise. For example, in a two-person partnership, you agree on a bunch of things, but there might be certain things that one person wants to include, the other person doesn't like them, so you have to leave them out, and vice versa. The other person wants some things in, and that's how you find what works for you both, and what makes your partnership, the music that is created by your partnership, is where both of your influences collide and things that you can agree on. We both like these things, and that's what our music is. And then that was great. But I wanted to create something that was all the things that just I liked, which encapsulated all my influences only, and none of those were none of those were pushed by the wayside because the other partner wasn't into those particular influences. And that's what this record was about.
Well, yeah, I look forward to hearing it.
It's finished. It's mastered.
Is it?
Yeah.
Can be released.
I don't know yet. I don't want to. I don't want to release it too early. Like, I'd like to play some shows first. I'd like to give it a bit of breathing space before it's just and just give it an opportunity to grow a bit, maybe. Because once you put it out, you can't put it out again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Once you've done it, that's it. You've done it. So I'd like to play some shows, and like, to begin with, the only way you can hear it is by coming and hearing a show. You know, I'd love to do that just for a moment and seeing what that's like, and see what kind of just evolves out of that. Because at the moment I don't have a label for it either, and again, it's a lot easier to have conversations with labels around them hearing it live, as well as the recorded version. To have a live entity to it, I think, gives it another dimension, which is quite exciting, and exciting for me because I haven't performed for a few years now. So yeah, really looking forward to just starting from scratch and just doing some really little local things, and just see where it goes, giving it an opportunity to grow. And again, I've no idea, I haven't really thought about it, but it just feels like the next right thing to do is not to try and get it out, but to try and get it played. It's in terms of going and performing it. Yeah, getting out there and performing it, and holding on to it. Like, yeah, because it's taken a lot of work, and it's you know, I'm really proud of it, and so I just want to make sure it has every opportunity to be worth something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's amazing that you can be in a cutthroat industry and still make decisions like that based on your instinct, and not sort of be completely concentrated on the sort of statistics of it, but just know when it feels right and what feels right to you, and keep the value in the music for yourself, as opposed to just the money that comes back from the music.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, because the music industry, like you say, is you use the word cutthroat. I think that it has to, because there is so much fear in making a career in the art world. There's so much fear that it's not possible, and that fear can really drive some kind of rash decisions if I'm not careful. And so yeah, I am doing everything I can to trust in instincts, because I don't know what the future holds. Who does? But I feel like my instincts will keep me grounded and keep me out of acting out of fear and making rash decisions than anything else. Or it's all I've got to keep me. It's the only other kind of like compass I have. The compass is either instinctual or it's fearful. And so I'm doing my best to keep connected to the instinctual compass as opposed to the fear-based one.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I don't think I've got any more questions. It's been really inspiring to talk to you. I feel like I've learned a lot. I've really gained a lot from this conversation. Do you know where you're touring yet?
No, I mean, yes, I finished the record yesterday. Just sent it to someone that is really interested in hearing it, because the next thing I want to do, the next thing that feels right to do is, because I don't have a manager or anything at this point. I have an accountant. So in terms of like booking shows being the next thing required, I need a live agent. So I've been speaking to someone who is well connected in that world, and I sent them a private link to the album this morning, and yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, if you're down playing anywhere near where I live, I'll definitely make sure to come and have a look.
Cool, nice one, Finnian.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to say to finish off?
No, it's all good. And no, it's been good. I've enjoyed it too. So
Good.
yeah, thanks for your questions.
Thank you very much. Well, take care, and I will hopefully speak to you again sometime.
Yeah, brilliant, nice one. All right, take care, Finnian. All the best. Happy birthday for yesterday.
Oh, cheers, man. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.